Hi guys, we are on week 4, module 1, World War II and Japanese expansion. For this lesson, you guys will be able to explain how Japanese expansion, or like spreading outwards, led to World War II using textual evidence to support your historical argument. Our language objective for today is to describe the causes of World War II using content-specific vocabulary. We're focusing our attention on the question of how did Japanese expansion lead to the start of World War II. Remember today, the things that you have to accomplish if you're following it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, is to get this Google Doc finished and turned in. Remember, click on not the share button, but the turn in button, and make sure your mastery check is taken and submitted in Agilistic. All right, our vocabulary word for today that we're going to start with is Japanese expansion. This is a time period from 1931 to 1942 in which Japan attacked and took control of other countries in the Pacific. I want to be a little bit careful about that because the Pacific obviously is like the west coast of the United States all the way over to where Japan, China, Korea, etc., are. I don't want you thinking like they took over a bunch of little islands in the Pacific Ocean, but they're talking about like the East China Sea, Pacific, the Sea of Japan, and we'll look more closely at a map to describe that. First and foremost, let's take a look at this too now. You're using the pictures in the chart to make some guesses about World War II on the table below. So we're looking at these two images, and this is how World War II began. So what we're seeing here, this is Hitler. You can tell because he's got his little funny mustache. You can see the swastika in the background. You can see a lot of soldiers marching through this like very organized system. And on this side, we have how World War II ended. We see a lot of rubble. We see one man standing here just kind of dumbfounded about what he's witnessing. And there's some destruction of this building in the back. So the first question is asking you, who do you think was the most responsible for starting World War II? So if you were looking at these images, who do you think was the most responsible for starting World War II? The response should start with these sentence stems that we've given you. Based on the photos, the person or people most responsible was or were. In the first photo, it shows. Obviously, like I described who this person is, who these people are, you might want to use that in your answer. The second one is using clues from the second photo to guess how it ended. Based on the second photo, World War II most likely ended by, in the second photo, it shows. So like what does this tell you about how World War II ended, particularly for those people in Europe? Once you're done with that, we're going to move on to this direct instruction section. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. All right. So just making sure we see some like common mistakes. Many people still are confusing, not just you guys, but like across the network, are confusing primary and secondary sources we see in work. Since you're going to continue to use these for a long time, we thought it would be a good idea to review the two. You guys have often like seen me describing things as like primary source, I was there, I saw it happen, and then I made this thing. So that's this right here. A secondary source is like I was not there, I did not see it happen, but I read about it, and then I created this thing afterwards. So that's kind of the easy way to delineate between primary and secondary sources. But let's have some practice. You're just going to be highlighting in the boxes which is which. So let's consider the time period that I am asking you to think about. We're studying World War II, which lasted from the invasion of Poland in 1939 to the armistice, like the end, the signing of peace declarations in 1945. So we're looking at that time period 1939 to 1945. You guys are just going to highlight, so you're going to use your highlighting tool up here at the top to decide if these are primary or secondary sources. So imagine you have just read a soldier's letter home about a battle they fought in 1942. What type of resource is this? So they're a soldier writing a letter home about a battle they just fought in 1942. They're likely fighting in battles for World War II, so they were likely there, which means they saw it happen, they created this thing. So I'm going to highlight primary source. You should also do that. This next one. You read a school textbook about World War II, or you guys have read like information today I'm going to show you is primary and secondary sources. So imagine you're reading about World War II. This textbook was written in 1998. What type of source is it? Is it I was there, I saw it happen, and I created this thing? Or I was not there, but I read about it, and then I created this thing? Note the date is in 1998. I was alive in 1998. I was not alive during World War II. So I'm going to pick secondary source, also because textbooks are notoriously secondary sources. So I'm going to highlight that. This last one is President LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, gave a speech about the heroes of World War II while he was president. His speech was given in 1965. What type of source is it? This one can be a little bit tricky. LBJ was alive at the time of World War II. He did not fight in World War II. As far as I know. I'll have to look back into that. But he was not president during World War II. That was FDR. But he was giving a speech about heroes of World War II 20 years after the fact. In all likelihood, he could have spoken to people that were fighting in World War II. He could have even actively interviewed them. But generally, because he's giving a speech after the fact, well after the fact, we're actually going to call it a secondary source. But I'm going to put a little note on here. So just remind myself that might have talked to World War II heroes. Just to make sure that I understand that that could have been a situation. But again, because it's 20 years after the fact, we're going to make sure that we identify, because it's just a speech written about it, that it is a secondary source. Once you've completed highlighting those, I'm going to have you move on to this vocabulary introduction section. I'll follow up on the next video with you.